Hi everyone, it's Jen Pisano, and I am here to talk about Book of Shadows. It's one of my favorite magical tools. It's also called a grimoire. And we are going to kick off level 2 right from the get-go, getting you comfortable with writing in your Book of Shadows. Now this is totally different than what we did in level 1, so I want to make sure that you understand these are two totally different magical tools. In level 1, you use something called a shadow journal. That is not the same as a book of shadows or a grimoire. Your shadow journal is your deepest, darkest thoughts, the things that you want to work through all the muck with, right? Whereas our book of shadows or our grimoire is a magical keepsake. It used to be something that would be passed down from generation to generation. Now, with us being in modern times, a book of shadows can be kept in any form that is comfortable for you in the way that you like to organize things. So I'm going to show you a couple of different examples. There is no right or wrong in this. It is personal choice and personal expression. So I have one that those of you who have joined me in live classes have seen me bring this one in. Now this is just a work of all of the things that I use in class teaching. So this is not my personal book, really. It's my teaching book. And I have things in here, if you can see. These are incantations, which you picked up in level 1. So that's one of the things that I have in my teaching grimoire. So I have the incantation for all of the different elements here, things that I want to pass forward to my students. Okay, I have the middle pillar ritual. I have different ceremonies. I have things to teach about the moon and the planets, which we'll get into in this level for level 2. But this is just a compiled source of all of the teachings that I like to share with students. Again, I said there's no right or wrong, right? So the way that I've organized my personal grimoires is I have everything separate out by subjects. Okay, so I have my teaching grimoire, and then as I'm learning something new, I might start a new book. Like right now I'm really diving into ancient Egypt, so I've started a totally different book just for everything that I'm learning about ancient Egypt and those deities and the Egyptian tarot, the Egyptian symbols, the Egyptian goddesses, and astrology. I have that totally segregated out because I'm in a deep dive of learning and channeling that information through on how it needs to come through to me personally. So for those types of instances, what I like to do is keep totally separate notebook binders, and I have them on many different subject matters. So just your standard 3-ring binder, and I will use dividers inside the notebook just like you would in your school days, right? So for my example with the Egyptian mysteries, I might have a divider for shamanic Egyptian astrology and a separate divider for the Egyptian tarot or symbols and so forth. So I have an easy reference to grab what I need as I'm studying and learning. And then once I know that that information is true for me, that that's my truth that I want to pass forward, I will put it into my permanent book of shadows that I'm going to pass on later to my son. So I have very personalized books of shadows, and the camera is going to reverse it, but it says cat fire here. And I've got 3 different ones that are my personal books, all with big cats, of course. Let me grab my jaguar up here too. So these are all my personal ones, that these are my heirloom items. These will be passed on to my little boy when I'm long gone. So those are all segregated out magically too for what makes sense to me. And again, there's no right or wrong. A lot of people will do a book of shadows like my teaching book, where it's a little bit of everything all within the same book, and it's not really meant to be organized just because you're putting information in as you gather it. Whereas the 3-ring binder, what I like about that is that you can segregate and organize and put your fingers on things a little bit more quickly. Same goes for those of you who are tech savvy. A lot of people now are keeping their books of shadows on their computer and organizing it in individual file folders on their computer directory. Same way that we would do with the 3-ring binder, segregating each category out in a separate file folder, with the main category being the folder for your grimoire. So again, no right or wrong. It's what works for you. When I first started doing this work, I was using just pretty journals that you can pick up even from a bookstore, Amazon, or whatever. So this was my magical working book for my priestess process when I was on that path. Everything magical that I want to keep and take forward and share with other people went in this book. And my Toltec experiences was in this nice bright red one. So you pick and choose and grow into it, whatever makes sense for you. Again, no right or wrong. Once you get the information that you know that you want to pass on to future generations, then it's good to put it in pen and ink. And there is something very magical about a nice inky pen and you transferring your energy through that pen, through the ink, and onto paper in your final product of your grimoire. So I don't want to underestimate that, although I do love the binders and I love the computer, but there is something incredibly beautiful about that experience of putting something down in pen and ink. And when you do that, make sure it's just the stuff that you really, really want to pass on. So I have things that I will always use. It's a part of me and who I am in my makeup. Like things like the Reiki symbols, things from other books and other teachers I put in here that I don't want to lose, like Nurturing the Rite of the Munakai, and different rituals that have been really, really important to me in my path that I want to pass on. Definitely everything with the moon, and my relationship with the moon and how it affects me is totally different than how it's going to affect other people. So I also include my personal workings and my personal experience. Opening sacred space. I have my favorite sources of calling in the directions that we've used in class and setting sacred space. I am very cross-cultural and very diverse in the teachings that I have received and also in the teachings that I share. So I've got several different ways of calling in the directions in my Book of Shadows and my Teaching Book of Shadows. How to pass Reiki attunements are in here. Different correspondences for herbs and how I work with herbs and how the different magical properties go into magical workings are all included in my personal books. Invocations are in here for sure. Candle magic. Things about the Lion Gate portal are in my Book of Shadows. Manifesting grids are in here. Like just stuff that's personal to me. In my teaching books, I include things that I use for shamanic journeys and how those meditations were successful and who liked what and how I'll go back and change that later. So those are in multiple places for me. So when you go back through, however it works for you, again, no right or wrong, even if you start with a journal, or even you can just pick up a notepad and start there if that feels right for you. You don't have to invest a lot of money in this. It's about daring to be different with your own life path and knowing that it is your path, and you take from the teachings what resonates with you in your heart. And our jobs as facilitators is to open up your perception, not to change your mind about anything. So what I love about the grimoires and the Book of Shadows is it has turned me into my own researcher. It has made me evaluate the things that I grew up with, the things that I have learned at other wonderful workshops and trainings and programs that I've done throughout my whole journey. And I take what I like. I take it within my own soul. I try to go within and say, is that my truth? Or am I just taking that as my truth because somebody told me that is the truth? So it's a way for you to go deep within yourself and discover and experiment and and awaken into what is truly your authentic best truth in this moment. That may change later, and that's okay. But as you are experimenting and growing and learning and becoming your own researcher, you document it in a place like a grimoire or a magical journal. And for what you decide that you want to pass on, if you decide to do so, I do suggest getting something that's a little bit more permanent, that's beautiful, and you can put your personality into that and pass that down if you so choose. If my son doesn't want mine, mine will be buried with me. But that is also very, very personal in how you want to disclose that and send that into your family if you choose to pass your workings down from generation to generation. I think it's a beautiful act of kindness to share something that is so intimate of who you are at your most raw and authentic level, to be able to share that with the people that you love the most. So anyways, that's my little chat on Book of Shadows and Grimoire, and I'll be popping on later where we can get in a little bit more detail about how to beautify your book if you like that, if you want to do an artistic approach. Mine is kind of scrapbooky. I've got all kinds of beautiful burnt edges and things like that that resonate with me and my soul. Or you can just do pen and ink and keep it simple. So have fun, explore, discover, research, and become the most magical version of yourself that is possible. Big hugs, big kisses. I will see you soon.